Hello, my name is Chris, and I am one of the peer mentors here at Metacrafters. And today what I'm going to show you is how to use GitPod alongside your JavaScript lessons. This is going to allow you to run the example code that you come across, as well as provide you a space where if you want to experiment with some code to see what happens, you can do that without any worry of, blowing anything up, which is good. So, we'll just get right to it. The first thing you're going to want to do is click this button here that says Open in GitPod. Now, I've already opened this several times, so it's just going to open up for me. For you, it may ask you to log into your GitHub before it fully loads. So if it does, just do exactly that. Log into your GitHub, and then it should come up just like this. If you're familiar with VS Code, this is VS Code, except it's in the cloud. If you're not familiar with VS Code, that's totally fine. It's just a tool that developers use in order to write their code and to test it. So once it's loaded, what you'll want to do is click this playground.js file. This is where you're going to be working and doing all of your experiments. If you want to save some space on your desktop, what you can do is click this Explorer button. That's just going to collapse that left pane and give you a little bit more room to work with. Because ideally, what you're going to want to do is have your playground on one side and then have your lesson on the other. Now, this comes with some example code that you can try out. And if you wanted to run this, all you would have to do is right-click inside of the editor and then select Run Code. And then you'll see the output of the code right here. Now this code is an example of a loop, which is basically something that just repeats over and over and over again until it hits a condition that tells it to stop. It's not important to know now, but that's something that you're going to learn in your lesson in the future. But just so you understand what this output is, it's basically counting from 1 to 5 and outputting that into the terminal here. But if we want to use an example from one of the first lessons, we can see, I'll just get something really simple here. So we'll just go forward a little bit. And yeah, perfect. So here we're declaring a variable and we're setting a value to it. In this case, we're setting the value of 5. So what you would do, if you're in your lesson and you want to try this out, you just click this copy button here, or you just highlight it and copy it just like you would any other text, and then paste it in. Now, one thing you'll notice is if you try to run it in this state, it's not actually going to output anything. But one nice thing is we can see that this did run successfully, so that's good. But if you want to see if the value of 5 was actually stored in this variable, what you would want to do is use the console.log command. And then inside these parentheses, you're going to want to put essentially whatever you want to get the value out of. In this case, that would be my var. And you always end this with a semicolon. So now if we click run, we see we get the value of 5. So pretty cool. So now, what if we had, say, multiple loops, for instance? Say we copy and paste this. And we'll just clean it up a little bit. So what happens if you have essentially just a bunch of code on your screen and you hit run? Well, let's find out. So we'll just set this to some different values so we can kind of see that they all ran on their own. If we click run code, is going to execute just everything that's here, right? So we have this counting to 1, we have this counting to 2, and we have this counting to 3. But what if, for instance, you wanted just one of these to run? So what you could do in that instance is just highlight the code that you want to test, click Run Code, and you can see only that code was executed here. Okay, so now for a bit more of an advanced example. Say you have a function, right? And again, if you don't know what a function is right now, it's totally fine. But when you do come across this, you'll be armed with the knowledge that you need to run it. So same as before, we're just going to copy this and paste it into our playground. And if we look at the instructions, it tells us that to call or invoke this function, that we just need to use this line here. So we'll go ahead and paste that as well. So now if we click Run Code, we can see that we got the output from this, which is just saying hello world. So if you have a function here and you want to call it and get its output, you basically just have the function name in order to call it. But what if your function doesn't have a console.log? That could happen, right? So to demonstrate what you would do in this instance, we'll just make this a function called +3. And then it's going to take some num, and we are going to take some num and add 3 to it. So what this is doing is taking this value here, it's adding 3 to it, and then we're telling it to return whatever the end result of this addition is. But you'll see if we run this, we don't have any output. And that's because we don't have a console.log that's providing that output, right? Though of course we also didn't call this either, right? So let's go ahead and call it. Oh, not like that, but the correct way. Then of course you have to provide it a value, so we'll just put a 1 here. So if you call it like this, you can see it's the same thing. We don't have any output. So what you can do is write console.log, and then in the parentheses of console.log, you'll just put in that function name. So now if we run it, we can see that we get the value of 4. So again, console.log is just going to print out whatever is returned to it. So if you put a variable in here, it's just going to put on the screen whatever is inside that variable. If you're calling a function, as long as that function returns something, then it's going to show that returned value in your terminal when you call it within the console.log. And I believe that is it. So if you have any questions about how to use this, feel free to reach out to any of us on Discord. My name is Chris. You can find me there pretty much 24 hours a day. If I'm not there, you can reach out to any of us on the team and we'll be glad to help you out. I hope you enjoy the course and take care.